Hi guys, welcome back. I hope everyone is doing great. So in today's video, I want to talk about the fragrances that I've been wearing, what I've been reaching for over the last month or so. The weather is definitely getting chillier and chillier. I've been reaching for my coat, and I've also been reaching for fragrances that are cozier, warmer scent profiles. So without further ado, let's get started with the first one from the house of Maitre Parfumeur Gantier. This is Ambre Précieux Ultime. And I've spoken about this. I recently added this to my collection. I think it's a few months now. I love this fragrance. And I did own Ambre Précieux, but I prefer the Ultime flanker. So this one is definitely a more intense sort of take on Ambre Précieux. It's definitely a little bit more rich. Both of them take amber into a powdery direction, which I love. It's just so great. It's so resinous and balsamic. There's Tolu balsam, there's Peru balsam in here. And even though this one, like Ambre Précieux, has myrtle and lavender, I feel like this one is not as aromatic and as masculine for me personally as the regular Ambre Précieux. So I prefer the Ultime to the Précieux. Like I said, it's a richer, more intense, maybe more full-bodied version. Both are totally beautiful and I love both of them. But this one is so well done. I really love this. It's such a beautiful wear experience. It's not too sweet. Some ambers can be a little bit too sweet and off-putting. It's a warm sweetness, a resinous sweetness. And like I said, it takes amber into a powdery direction, and it's one of the most coziest fragrances. And I like that this amber, compared to some of the other ambers in my collection, keeps this sort of middle of the ground. So it's not taking an amber into an uber dark direction. It's also not as vanillic as the Maison Francis Kurkdjian's amber. This one is just right. So I feel like I reach for this one more than some of the other ones that I have in my collection. So I really like this one. I'm enjoying it. Ambre Précieux Ultime. So next up is a vanilla fragrance from the house of Celine, and this is Black Tie. Now, I have no idea what's going on with Black Tie. It's not discontinued, it's just not in stock, and it's been months and months. And I called one of the Celine boutiques in Manhattan at one point in the summer, and I was told that maybe near the holidays that they would get it back in stock. So I'm not sure what's going on. I called for my sister. I have a bottle. As you can see, there's a nice dent and the color is nice and ambery. And this is such a great vanilla fragrance. Definitely simple, but I really do like the way Celine fragrances wear. They're really, really smooth. You have orris butter in here. There's a little bit of powderiness. And I don't find this too sugary sweet as a vanilla fragrance. It's definitely not cloying. There's nothing in here that smells synthetic. To me, it smells like a high quality vanilla fragrance. And you have this tree moss that adds something a little bit earthy. But the orris butter, the tree moss, everything is very nuanced and it's just a hint in the fragrance. At the end of the day, it's the way the fragrance is sort of, I guess, balanced and blended. So while it is a straight up vanilla fragrance, it's a sort of woody take. There are woody notes in here as well. It's sort of a woody take on vanilla with this smooth, almost powdery orris butter and this tree moss that adds something just a little bit earthy. Nothing is too dark. Nothing jumps out at you. Very smooth. Very nice vanilla fragrance. I consider this a sort of woody vanilla fragrance. If I had to categorize it, I feel like it's a woody vanilla fragrance, but it's so smooth and high quality. I really enjoy this. I get great performance from this fragrance. Some of the Celines can be a little light wearing. This one, I feel like I get great longevity, even though it's not the loudest fragrance, which is fine. I've worn this to work, which is perfect. I don't want something too loud. The fragrances that I wear to work are going to be something a little bit more subdued. So that's Black Tie. So the next one I almost did not include because, to be honest, it's very, very difficult to describe this fragrance. This is from the house of Byredo, 1996. So this fragrance has a few different things going on. I feel like the patchouli is center stage, but I would not describe it as a full-on patchouli fragrance. The patchouli is earthy, but it's not super soily or dark or chocolatey. And with this patchouli, you have iris and you have violet, so I'm getting this sort of aspect from the iris. It's a little bit powdery, and there's a leathery texture to the fragrance as well. And then you have a juniper berry at the top, which adds a little maybe spice to the fragrance. So it's quite interesting. And if you look at reviews on this fragrance, it's very interesting because the reviews run the gamut from someone describing this as smelling like bananas to someone describing it as an iris fragrance, an iris patchouli fragrance, to some people describing it as a vanilla fragrance. At the end of the day, I feel like it's a very earthy fragrance. There is some sweetness, but it's warm, and the fragrance is earthy. So at the end of the day, I feel like it's a patchouli with some sweetness, some earthiness, a little bit of spice. You have the juniper berry and a little bit of powderiness from the iris, and it also has a sort of suede-like leathery texture to it. And the performance is fantastic, by the way. This fragrance was on my skin for hours and I was still sort of getting wafts and enjoying it. Not that that necessarily matters. It's not loud, but the longevity is definitely great with this fragrance. So I really am enjoying this. It's fairly new to my collection. I've always been a fan of Byredo fragrances. I owned Gypsy Water years ago. I just purchased Bal d'Afrique finally after years of wanting it. And I really like the simplistic sort of scent profiles, although some of them are quite interesting. I would love to get my nose on Pulp, but this one is great. I really enjoy this one. Maybe a little difficult to describe, so if anyone's interested, definitely sample it. But if you enjoy patchouli, maybe this one is worth getting your nose on, 1996. So the next one from the house of Labo, this is Poivre 23. So between Labo and Byredo, I know that the true niche heads consider these, I guess, not really niche fragrances and overpriced, etc., etc. I personally enjoy Byredo fragrances, and I have a ton of Le Labo fragrances. I enjoy them. Some of them are a little synthetic smelling, and they are a bit overpriced, I will admit. But personally, I have my ways of getting around the price and finding these on the resale market, but you have to be careful. But anyway, back to the fragrance. I love this. Love, love, love this. And I discovered with this one and also Hermès's Poivre Samarcande, I like peppery fragrances. So this one, it's so great. I love this. This one, the nose behind this fragrance is Nathalie Lorson, and I'm learning that I like the fragrances by this perfumer. It is so warming and cozy. I love this fragrance. So what you have is this sort of vanillic, woody fragrance, and the vanilla is a warm vanilla. I think there is vanilla, but there's also some sweetness coming from labdanum in here, so it's warm. And then complementing the sort of vanillic, woody aspect is bourbon pepper, but the pepper is not too strong and too sharp and overwhelming. Some peppery fragrances can be a little bit overwhelming to me. This one is just right, but the pepper is definitely at the forefront. So this is one of those Labo fragrances where the name actually does match the scent profile. This one does. And I feel like along with the pepper, you might get hints of something just a little bit smoky. So even though the notes maybe sound a little bit heavy, pepper, the woods, this is actually very, very smooth. So I think the perfumer did a great job with this one. I really enjoy it. It's very warm. It's perfect for the fall. And for some reason, this scent profile sort of gives me the image of walking around when the weather is changing, the leaves are falling off the tree, and I'm wearing a scarf because it's a little chilly. I feel like this scent profile is very warming and cozy, and I think this one is really well done. So that's Poivre 23. So the next one is very, very new to my collection. I only wore this twice. This is Rotano by Maison. So this fragrance is an equestrian fragrance. This fragrance has a note of horsehair, but it's not a dirty equestrian animalic fragrance. It's actually really, really nice. I really do like this. So in the opening, this fragrance reminded me immediately of Cuir Ottoman by Parfums d'Empire. For a brief few moments, I felt like I was getting that sort of dusty, powdery, almost like purple flowers contrasted with the suede, leathery sort of aspect in the fragrance of Cuir Ottoman. So this reminded me of that for a few minutes until it started warming up on skin. And then you get the equestrian aspects of this fragrance. You feel like you're at a horse stable, but there's nothing dirty smelling about this. It's very clean. And I'm getting wafts of like a dusty, dry hay, and you have some resinous components in here. There's a little bit of smokiness, and I feel like I get a little bit of that like horsey sort of quality that you get with some leathery fragrances. So it's really quite interesting. And even though I'm talking about all these notes, it's not a strong fragrance. It's very, very soft. All of this is very subdued. It's a very dusty, subdued fragrance. It has a very dusty wear on skin. That's the feel you get. That's the way it wears on skin. It's definitely a soft, dusty wear on skin, but you do get this very subtle leather. You feel like you're at a horse stable, something very natural smelling about it, dry, like you're getting wafts of hay and you're getting sort of wafts of horse, but not dirty, even though I'm reluctant to say that. It's a great fragrance. I really like this. It's very refined. I would say that it's very refined. So even though you do get that horsey aspect, it's very, very smooth, very well done. It's kept clean. So it's a very nice one. I like this one. So the next one is from the house of Maison Violet, and this is Sketch. So this is the coziest. This has to be the coziest of them all in today's lineup. This is all about vanilla and tonka, and patchouli complements the vanilla and tonka in here. It's a powdery fragrance. It's a cozy fragrance. You have to like powdery fragrances to appreciate this. The patchouli in here is a little bit soily, earthy, but it's not an overwhelming patchouli. The star of the show, like I always say when I talk about this, I feel like it's the tonka bean, but there's also vanilla in here. And it is compared to Shalimar, I think on Profumo, or maybe Fragrantica, or maybe both. So I do see how it's Shalimar-like, but you have the patchouli here, and the patchouli adds an earthy aspect, but it's powdery, and it's so cozy. It's a beautiful one. And this one, by the way, the perfumer is Nathalie Larson as well. So I really love wearing this. I wore this, I think, twice last week. To wear one fragrance twice in 1 week is difficult. I'm always testing new things, but I'm enjoying this one. So that's Sketch. So the next one is from the house of Chanel, and here we have Coromandel. One of my favorite fragrances from this house. I love everything from this house, almost everything, and I love this one. So as you guys know, this is a patchouli fragrance. There's a nice amount of sweetness in here. There's a sweetness that comes from a white chocolate note, even though I always say that I don't necessarily identify the sweetness as being white chocolate necessarily. Nonetheless, it's creamy. It's a creamy sweetness. It's an earthy, soily patchouli, but it's not too dark. It's not too soily. It's restrained, even though it is a patchouli fragrance. Patchouli can be dark. It's done in Chanel style, so it's restrained. It's classy. It's elevated. I love this. And I apologize for the background noise. That's New York City. It's noisy. So Coromandel by the House of Chanel. I love wearing this. This got me a compliment. I was in a deposition and the court reporter, before I left, asked me what I was wearing. I did not notice this on myself. By the time she asked me what I was wearing, I had no idea that anyone could smell what I was wearing. So apparently, even though I can't sense it, other people were smelling this on me because I got a compliment. This is a beautiful fragrance, really, really beautiful. Coromandel by the House of Chanel. So last but not least is one that has to be one of the best finds for me personally of the last 6 months, let's say. And this is from the house of Miller Harris. This is L'air de Rien. And this is a fragrance that was made for Jane Birkin. And it is a special fragrance, and there's a backstory to how I discovered this. So I was purchasing a fragrance from a seller on Mercari, and her prices were fantastic. And she had a nice collection of fragrances up for sale. And they were definitely niche and different and not the same usual. And I was looking at the fragrances and then looking up the fragrance on Parfumeur, reading about the fragrances and deciding they would have been blind buys. And so long story short, this one was one of the fragrances, but it was a partial. It was missing maybe a quarter of the bottle, and I was considering it. I was reading about it. Something intrigued me. I'm not sure why. I never smelt the fragrance. I never saw anyone review this fragrance. Something intrigued me when I was reading, and I did not go for it, and it sold. And then it was nowhere to be found, and I purchased it from an online boutique at full price. This is a fragrance I believe comes out once a year for a limited amount of time, maybe in the fall. But if I'm wrong, correct me, but I believe that's how it works. So I pulled the trigger. I'm not sure what made me blind by this, but this is beautiful. I love this fragrance. I wore this, I think, 3 times in 2 weeks, which is a lot. This is an abstract fragrance. This is a musky fragrance that's translucent and transparent. It's abstract, but I think the best way that I can describe this is it's an earthy fragrance with moss. So it's mossy, but because it's translucent, transparent, imagine that the mossy aspect is not heavy. It's not dense. It's sort of dispersed in this musk, in this translucency. And with this mossiness comes the ambery components, and I love it. I love the warm amber that comes along with this earthy, mossy aspect, the mossy being a little bit green. And then what I think is brilliant in here, because if it was just that, it would be boring and just too earthy. What's brilliant, I think, is the neroli that shines through, but it's not prominent. The hints of that floral component of the neroli, it's the perfect complement, and maybe it brightens things up. I absolutely adore this. Love, love, love this fragrance. It is so interesting. It's so refined. The wear on skin was magnificent. I did have to spray a couple of extra sprays, which is something that I'm learning to do. My usual go-to is to spray maybe 3 or 4. Here, here, here maybe as a third, and then on one arm. I usually reserve the other arm for testing a sample when I'm at work. So something like this, maybe 5, 6 sprays, 6, 7. And I was sort of getting wafts of it softly throughout the entirety of the day. So the performance surprised me, because the first time that I sprayed, maybe 1 spray just to sort of get an idea, I felt like it disappeared after a couple of hours, and I thought, oh, this is going to be one of those fragrances that disappears after an hour on skin. Absolutely not. I think this is absolutely stunning. I don't know where this has been. It does remind me of something. It reminds me of Reflets d'Ambre by Maison Francis Kurkdjian, which is a fragrance that I really do love. Not that it smells the same, but I will say that when I first smelt this, immediately I thought of Reflets d'Ambre. There is something about this that is hinting at Reflets d'Ambre, but then I went to that fragrance and I realized it's definitely more full-bodied. This one is musky. It's translucent, transparent. So imagine something like a Reflets d'Ambre in sort of a dispersive, translucent, transparent delivery, a more musky delivery. And I think this is stunning. I felt that this should have a video all on its own. And so maybe that's what I should have done, but I was excited and I wanted to include it because it is a fragrance that I have been wearing and it is a fragrance that I plan on wearing. So this is such a great find. I consider this a find. One of the best finds, I think, of at least the last 6 months, maybe of the last year. That's how much I love this. So that's Rien by Miller Harris. So that's it for today, guys. Those are 8 fragrances that I have been reaching for, wearing, and utterly enjoying. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of these fragrances. And as always, thank you so much for watching, your support, and your comments. Until next time, bye, guys.